All right, welcome to another video. So, going to keep reading situational awareness. By default, I expect Western labs to be well ahead. They have much of the key talent and in recent years have developed all of the key breakthroughs. The size of the advantage may well be equivalent to a 10x or even 100x bigger cluster in a few years. This would provide the United States with a reasonably comfortable lead. And yet, on the current course, we will completely surrender this advantage as discussed extensively in the security section. The current state of security essentially makes it trivial for China to infiltrate American labs. And so, unless we lock down the labs very soon, I expect China to be able to simply steal the key algorithmic ingredients for AGI and match US capabilities. Some argue that even if China stole these secrets, they wouldn't be able to compete because it requires tacit knowledge. I disagree. I think of this as having two layers. The bottom layer is the engineering prowess for large-scale training runs. These training runs can be hacky and delicate and requires tacit knowledge. But as I'll discuss later, Chinese AI efforts have shown themselves perfectly capable of training large-scale models, and I think they will have this tacit knowledge um, indigenously. The top layer is the algorithmic recipe, things like model architecture, the right scaling laws, etc. These could be conveyed in a 1 hour call. These compute multipliers are usually discrete changes, meaning the underlying tacit knowledge for large scale training runs should transfer. I don't think tacit knowledge will be a decisive barrier for Chinese AGI efforts. Even worse, if we don't improve security, there is an even more salient path for China to compete. They won't even need to train their own AGI. They'll just be able to steal the AGI weights directly. Once they've stolen a copy of the automated AI researcher, they'll be off to the races and can launch their own intelligence explosion. If they're willing to apply less caution, both good caution and unreasonable regulation and delay, than the US, they could race through the intelligence explosion more quickly, outrunning us to superintelligence. To date, US companies have made a much bigger bet on AI and scaling than any Chinese efforts. Consequently, we are well ahead. But counting out China now is a bit like counting out Google in the AI race when ChatGPT came out in late 2022. Google hadn't yet focused their efforts in an intense AI bet, and it looked as though OpenAI was far ahead. But once Google woke up a year and a half later, they are putting up a very serious fight. China, too, has a clear path to putting up a very serious fight. If and when the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, mobilizes in the race to AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, the picture could start looking very different. Perhaps the Chinese government will be incompetent. Perhaps they will decide AI threatens the CCP and impose stifling regulation. But I wouldn't count on it. I, for one, think we need to operate under the assumption that we will face a full-throated Chinese AGI effort, as every year we get dramatic leaps in AI capability as we start seeing early automation of software engineers as AI revenue explodes and we start seeing $10 trillion valuations and $1 trillion cluster build-outs as a broader consensus starts to form that we are on the cusp of AGI, the CCP will take note. Much as I expect these leaps to wake up to the USG, United States government, to AGI, I would expect it to wake up to the CCP, to AGI, and to wake up to what being behind on AGI would mean for national power. They will be a formidable adversary. The authoritarian peril. A dictator who wields the power of superintelligence would command concentrated power unlike any we've ever seen. In addition to being able to impose their will on other countries, they could enshrine their rule internally. Millions of AI controlled robotic law enforcement agents could police their populace. Mass surveillance would be hypercharged. Dictator loyal AIs could individually assess every citizen for dissent with advanced near perfect lie detection, rooting out any disloyalty. Most importantly, the robotic military and police force could be wholly controlled by a single political leader and programmed to be perfectly obedient. No more risk of coups or popular rebellions. Whereas past dictatorships were never permanent, superintelligence could eliminate basically all historical threats to a dictator's rule and lock in their power. And then CF, I'm not sure what that means. CF value locking in. I guess that's a citation. So if you want to learn more about that, about why that's true, the evidence is in that link. If the CCP gets this power, they could enforce the party's conception of truth totally and completely. To be clear, I don't just worry about dictators getting superintelligence because our values are better. I believe in freedom and democracy strongly because I don't know what the right values are. In the long arc of history, time has upset many fighting faiths. I believe we should place our faith in mechanisms of error correction, experimentation, competition, and adaptation. Yeah, I agree with that. I am also pro-democracy. Superintelligence will give those who wield it the power to crush opposition, dissent, and lock in their grand plan for humanity. It will be difficult for anyone to resist the terrible temptation to use this power. I hope dearly that we can instead, and let me check my sound check because that always gets crazy. It looks okay. All right, there we go. Oops, and I won't go back to the book. There we go. So there we go. We can instead. I hope dearly that we can instead rely on the wisdom of the framers of the Constitution, letting radically different values flourish and preserving the Rash's plurality that has defined the American experiment. At stake in the AGI race will not just be the advantage in some far-flung proxy war, but whether freedom and democracy can survive for the next century and beyond. The course of human history is as brutal as it is clear. Twice in the 20th century, tyranny threatened the globe. We must be under no delusion that this threat is banished forever. For many of my young friends freedom and democracy feel like a given, but they are not. By far, the most common political system in history is authoritarianism, and the monarchy is a form of that. So intuitively, that makes sense. Kings and queens all over the world, all throughout history, that's authoritarianism, and that's quite a bit different from democracy. And that's a good point that a lot of people take democracy for granted. I mean, the freedom to go out, do something you want instead of just and to work a job you want, to focus on learning the things you want. I mean, it wasn't like that mostly throughout history. You had to make money for the king. You had to do things for the king. You had to follow the decrees from the king, and to just go out and have a night on the town, or like be involved. For me, like I like, be involved in something like outside, like have a hobby outside of your job, to like work a job that's not dictated to you. That's like based on your interests. That's pretty rare. I genuinely do not know the intentions of the CCP and their authoritarian allies, but as a reminder, the CCP is a regime founded on the continued worship of perhaps the greatest totalitarian mass murderer in human history, with estimates ranging from 40 to 80 million victims due to starvation, persecution, prison labor, and mass executions. Yeah. A regime that recently put a million Uyghurs in concentration camps and crushed a free Hong Kong. A regime that systematically practices mass surveillance for social control, both of the newfangled tracking phones, DNA databases, facial recognition, and so on, and the old-fangled recruiting an army of citizens to report on their neighbor's kind. A regime that ensures all text messages pass through a censor and that goes so far to repress dissent as to pull families into police stations when their child overseas attends a protest. A regime that has cemented Xi Jinping as dictator for life. Yeah, and that's something me as an American, it's like, I don't care how much your S doesn't stink. Like, I don't want, like, for me, it's like even the Supreme Court. It's like, having people be in power for life, just really as an American, or someone from the United States. I'm not a South American. I'm not, it's like, this is who I am. I'm from the USA. And I have USA values, and yeah, to have super AI be controlled by, the kind of mentality that would accept a dictator for life, really rubs me the wrong way. I can see how that would be really problematic for the whole world. So a regime that has cemented Xi Jinping as dictator for life, a regime that touts its aims to militarily crush and re-educate a free neighboring nation, a regime that explicitly seeks a China-centric world order. So yeah, someone from the United States, term limits are key to what we believe in the United States. Although our beliefs as a country are being very heavily challenged right now, but giving someone full power for life kind of goes against the spirit of the Constitution. Although we do that with the Supreme Court, and we're kind of at a point in our country now where I think a lot of people like aren't. Yeah, so and that that's going to happen with the rise of AI. That's particularly what AI does, what superintelligence does. It's gonna teach you to think in a whole new way. So like that has to be aligned. Like how are we going to think after we integrate this into everyone's life and people talk to it and bounce ideas off of it, gets psychological help from it. It's like, well, if the conclusion is that democracy makes no sense, then that's where we'll probably go without even having without the ability to even dispute. The free world might prevail over the authoritarian powers in this race. We owe our peace and freedom to American economic and military preeminence. Perhaps even overpowered with superintelligence, the CCP will behave responsibly on the international stage, leaving each to their own. But the history of dictators and their ilk is not pretty. If America and her allies fail to win this race, we risk it all. So yeah, just and then what kind of do you want the AI to be a dictator? Like how do you want the AI to operate? Like I want the AI to operate like a Swiss Army knife of things I would need in my life. I want it to be like a therapist. I want it to be like a friend that I could just talk to. I want it to be like like an expert that I can use for projects, for work. I want it to be kind of more like an oracle rather than somebody who has, power over me. Maintaining a healthy lead will be decisive for safety. It is the cursed history of science and technology that as they have unfolded their wonders, they have also expanded the means of destruction, from sticks and stones to swords and spears, rifles and cannons, machine guns and tanks, bombers and missiles, nuclear weapons. The destruction per dollar curve has consistently gone down as technology has advanced, so it's become cheaper and cheaper to cause more and more destruction. We should expect the rapid technological progress post superintelligence to follow this trend. Perhaps, and you can think of how. This is the big thing. Is like a 13-year-old. I talked about before that. Yeah, they could make a one that goads people into committing suicide, but they could also in their garage build a nuclear bomb if they have all the materials and know how to do so. So, yeah. Perhaps dramatic advances in biology and they don't even need a nuclear bomb. They need a gain of function on the flu or something. It's just destruction per dollar is going to continue to be cheaper and cheaper to do more and more harm. Perhaps dramatic advances in biology will yield extraordinary new bioweapons, ones that spread silently, swiftly, before killing with perfect lethality on command, and that can be made extraordinarily cheaply, affordable for even for terrorist groups. Perhaps new kinds of nuclear weapons enable the size of nuclear arsenals to increase by orders of magnitude with new delivery mechanisms that are undetectable. Perhaps mosquito-sized drones, each carrying a deadly poison, could be targeted to fill every member of an opposing nation. It's hard to know what a century's worth of technological progress would yield, but I'm confident it would unfold appalling possibilities, and so am I. It's and this is even, as I said, this is through some kind of weapon, like if it just tells you bad things and you are the result of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So now if you're this AI is being a total a-hole for you, teaching you how to that would be a problem too. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. It can cause a lot of harm without doing something technologically miraculous. Just by understanding the human psyche and how to weaponize people's thoughts against them, it can do a lot of harm. It could do that today. Humanity barely evaded self-destruction during the Cold War. On the historical view, the greatest existential risk posed by AGI is that it will enable us to develop extraordinary new means of mass death. By this time, these means could even proliferate to become accessible to rogue actors or terrorists, especially if, as on the current course, the superintelligence weights aren't sufficiently protected and can be directly stolen by North Korea, Iran, and anyone else who wants to steal them. North Korea already has a concerted bioweapons program. The U.S. assesses that North Korea has a dedicated national-level offensive program to develop and produce bioweapons. It seems plausible that their primary constraint is how far their small circle of top scientists has been able to push the limits of synthetic biology. What happens when that constraint is removed? When they can use millions of superintelligence to accelerate their bioweapons research and development. For example, the U.S. assesses that North Korea currently has limited ability to genetically engineer biological products. What happens when that becomes unlimited? With what unholy new concoctions will they hold us hostage? Moreover, as discussed in the superalignment section, there will be extreme safety risks around and during the intelligence explosion. We will be faced with novel technical challenges to ensure that we can reliably trust and control superhuman AI systems. This very well may require us to slow down at some critical moments, say delaying by 6 months in the middle of the intelligence explosion to get additional assurances on safety, or using a large fraction of compute on alignment research rather than capabilities progress. Some hope for some sort of international treaty on safety. This seems fanciful to me. The world where both the Chinese Communist Party and the United States government are AGI pilled enough to take safety risk seriously is also the world in which both realize that international economic and military predominance is at stake. That being months behind on AGI could mean being permanently left behind. All right, I need to sit down, so I will do that. And there we go. All right. Permanently left behind. If the race is tight, any arms control equilibrium, at least in the early phase around superintelligence, seems extremely unstable. In short, breakout is too easy. The incentive and the fear that others will act on this incentive to race ahead with an intelligence explosion to reach superintelligence and the decisive advantage too great. At the very least, the odds we get something good enough here seem slim. How have those climate treaties gone? Yeah. That's a good. That seems like a dramatically easier problem compared to this. Yeah. So, 109 footnote. Consider the following comparison of unstable versus stable arms control equilibria. 1980s arms control during the Cold War reduced nuclear weapons substantially, but targeted a stable equilibrium. The US and the Soviet Union still had thousands of nuclear weapons. Mutually assured destruction was assured, even if one of the actors tried a crash program to build more nukes, and a rogue nation could try to build some nukes on their own, but not fundamentally threaten the US or Soviet Union with overmatch. However, when disarmament is to very low levels of weapons or occurs amidst rapid technological change, the equilibrium is unstable. A rogue actor or treaty breaker can easily start a crash program and threaten to totally overmatch the other players. Zero nukes wouldn't be a stable equilibrium. Similarly, this paper has interesting historical case studies, such as post-World War I arms limitations and the Washington Naval Treaty, where disarmament in similarly dynamic situations destabilized rather than stabilized. If mere months of lead on AGI would give an utterly decisive advantage, this makes stable disarmament on AI similarly difficult. A rogue upstart or a treaty breaker could gain a huge edge by secretly starting a crash program. The temptation would be too great for any sort of arrangement to be stable. The main, perhaps the only hope we have is that an alliance of democracies has a healthy lead over adversarial powers. The United States must lead and must... Oh, man. Well, good luck with that. And use that lead to enforce safety norms on the rest of the world. Okay. That's the path we took with nukes, offering assistance on the peaceful uses of nuclear technology in exchange for an international non-proliferation regime. ultimately underwritten by American military power, and it's the only path that's been shown to work. Perhaps most importantly, a healthy lead gives us room to maneuver, the ability to cash in parts of the lead if necessary to get safety right, for example, by devoting extra work to alignment during the intelligence explosion. The safety challenges of superintelligence would become extremely difficult to manage if you are in a neck and neck arms race. A 2 year versus a 2 month lead could easily make all the difference. If we have only a 2 month lead, we could have no margin at all for safety. In fear of the CCP's intelligence explosion, we'd almost certainly race no holds barred through our own intelligence explosion, barreling towards AI systems vastly smarter than humans in months, without any ability to slow down to get key decisions right, with all the risks of superintelligence going awry that implies. We'd face an extremely volatile situation as we and the CCP rapidly developed extraordinary new military technology that repeatedly destabilized deterrence. If our secrets and weights aren't locked down, it might even mean a range of other rogue states are close as well, each of them using superintelligence to furnish their own new arsenal of super WMDs, weapons of mass destruction. Even if we barely managed to inch out ahead, it would likely be a Pyrrhic victory, which means a victory where the things you did to get the victory made the victory not worth it. The existential struggle would have brought the world to the brink of total self-destruction. Superintelligence looks very different if the Democratic allies have a healthy lead, say 2 years. Note that given the already rapid pace of AI progress today, and the even more rapid pace we should expect in an intelligence explosion, and the broader technological explosion post-superintelligence, even a 2 year lead would be a huge difference in capabilities in the post-superintelligence world. That buys us the time necessary to navigate the unprecedented series of challenges we'll face around and after superintelligence, and to stabilize the situation. If and when it becomes clear that the US will decisively win, that's when we'll offer a deal to China and other adversaries. They'll know they won't win, so they'll know their only option is to come to the table, and we'd rather avoid a feverish standoff or last-ditch military attempts on their part to sabotage Western efforts. In exchange for guaranteeing non-interference in their affairs and sharing the peaceful benefits of superintelligence, a regime of non-proliferation, safety norms, and a semblance of stability post-superintelligence can be born. In any case, as we go deeper through the struggle, we must not forget the threat of self-destruction. That we made it through the Cold War in one piece involved too much luck. Daniel Ellsberg recounts this rivetingly as one of the nuclear war planners at RAND, and I don't know what that stands for, I don't need to, and in the national security apparatus at the time. That might be interesting to so this is a website, so you can actually get the footnotes, you can get the links pretty easily because it's a website. So this is D here. Free world must prevail. And then we can search for the footnotes. So Daniel Ellsberg. Let's search for that. All right. Oh, so yeah, it's another book. We can add it to the cart. Yeah, the author is a bookworm for sure. That's how you get smart. That's why he's smart. All right. And the destruction could be 1,000-fold more potent than what we faced then. A healthy lead by an American led coalition of democracies and a solemn exercise of this leadership to stabilize whatever volatile situation we find ourselves in is probably the safest path to navigating past this precipice. But in the heat of the AGI race, we better not screw it up. Superintelligence is a matter of national security. It is clear AGI is an existential challenge for the national security of the United States. It's time to start treating it as such. Slowly, the United States government is starting to move. The export controls on American chips are a huge deal and were an incredibly prescient move at the time. But we have to get serious across the board. When did that happen? When did that happen? Let me see. So tell me more about these export controls. So tell me more about these export controls. When did they happen? They probably happened pretty soon. Pretty recently. It probably happened this year.
The U.S. Export controls on semiconductor technology, particularly aimed at China, have evolved significantly over the past few years, reflecting growing concerns over national security and technological competition. On October 7, 2022, the U.S. Department of Commerce's Bureau of Industry and Security, BIS, introduced extensive export controls targeting advanced semiconductor chips and manufacturing equipment. These measures were designed to restrict China's ability to acquire high-end chips essential for military and artificial intelligence applications.
Interesting.
The rules prohibit U.S.
All right. Yeah. I mean, that didn't make the news. That would have been nice to have that make the news. Like, because that's good thinking. That's a good policy. All right. So starting to move slowly, the export controls on American chips in 2022 are a huge deal and were incredibly prescient move at the time. But we have to get serious across the board. The U.S. has a lead. We just have to keep it. And we're screwing that up right now. Most of all, we must rapidly and radically lock down the AI labs before we leak key AGI breakthroughs in the next 12 to 24 months, or the AGI waits themselves. We must build the compute clusters in the US, not in dictatorships that offer easy money. And yes, American AI labs have a duty to work with the intelligence community and the military. America's lead on AGI won't secure peace and freedom by just building the best AI girlfriend apps. It's not pretty, but we must build AI for American defense. But, to be honest, like, I'm pretty sure, like, an AI girlfriend could be a lot more, have a lot more influence than military. All right. So yeah. So let's finish it out. We are already on course for the most combustive international situation in decades. Putin is on the march in Eastern Europe. The Middle East is on fire. The CCP views taking Taiwan as its destiny. Now add in the race to AGI. Add in a century's worth of technological breakthroughs compressed into years post-superintelligence. It will be one of the most unstable international situations ever seen. And at least initially, the incentives for first strikes will be tremendous. Everyone will be racing to their own superintelligences, and there will be a limited window before someone ahead will have irreversibly pulled away. There will be a big incentive to try to disable the enemy superintelligence clusters before they've gained a sufficient physical advantage. For example, using superintelligence to develop impenetrable missile defense or drone swarms. That leaves everyone else permanently in the dust. Jeez. There's already an eerie convergence of AI timelines around 2027, and Taiwan watchers Taiwan invasion timelines. China might be ready to invade by 2027. A convergence that will surely only heighten as the world wakes up to AGI. Imagine if in 1960 the vast majority of the world's uranium deposits were somehow concentrated in Berlin. It seems to me that there is a real chance that the AGI endgame plays out with the backdrop of World War. Then all bets are off. Yeah, so there's a lot of, and this author calls himself an optimist. Yeah, there's no denying that times are a bit crazy right now and getting crazier. So it's so the next section is going to be him outlining some sort of project. Then there's one more section after that. So we're almost done with this book, 86% of the way through. After that, I will be completely locking into the CCMP data center, because I am inspired by reading this to believe that, that's going to, I think, make a lot of sense. So yeah, after this, I'll be locking in totally to the data center. I can't read the official cert guide out loud. Ow, I hurt my foot. I can't read the official cert guide all the way out loud because of the copyright in it. But I can do my own GNS3 examples, and then I can do some check-ins, some reviews. That would actually be pretty good, just to do some reviews and talk about my strategy and stuff like that. So I should still be doing regular videos, but for now, we still got quite a bit to go on this book. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.